Let's go down a couple lines. This is where now the if statement is going to begin here inside our main function. Okay. The if statement, as I said before, begins with the word if. And you'll note that when you write the word if, it turns blue because it is a keyword, a reserved keyword in C++. And we state the word if, space, and then a parentheses. And what we're going to do here is our conditional statement now is compare, using a comparison operator, Bob's age and Tom's age. So we'd say something like this: if Bob's age is greater than Tom's age, okay, we'll put all of that in parentheses, and then we go down a line and we open our curly brace, go down 2 lines, and close our curly brace. Now you'll see these set of curly braces are indented now and lining up exactly with the if statement here. And this is done automatically by Visual C++ as a way of showing that this set of curly braces goes with this if statement, not so that we don't confuse them with the other set of curly braces that are part of the main function. Alright, now we're inside the opening if statement, and so we've simply stated that if Bob's age is greater than Tom's age, then we want to, in this case, let's just print out a message. We'll say cout Bob is older than Tom. Okay, and put an end line statement just like that. Alright, so that's the use of an if statement. It's as simple as that. The if followed by a conditional statement in parentheses, followed by the curly braces and whatever programming statements we want to include in there. However, remember earlier I said there were 3 types of if statement clauses. We have the if, the else if, and the else. So how do we use all 3 of those? Well, we can use them quite simply right here by doing the following. We can go down a line and we can now say else if, okay, and go on with our if statement by saying else if Bob's age is less than Tom's age, okay, and we'll end that parentheses there and go down once again, put in opening curly brace and a closing, and go up a line so that we're in between those. So now we're saying this is already still part of the initial the initial if statement. This is just a second clause of it, think of it as just a second section of the if statement. So we're saying basically, if this is not true, then well, possibly this might be true. So we can ask another if question. If Bob's age is less than Tom's age, then well, we're going to put another cout statement that this time would say something like, you guess it, Tom is older than Bob. Oops, end line. Okay, so now we know that if Bob's age is less than Tom's, then Tom is older than Bob. And finally, we have what's called an else statement. Now, an else does not include the word if after it. It's just the word else all by itself. And since there is no if, we don't put a conditional statement. Okay, instead we just go down a line, put the opening and closing curly brace, go up a line, and we can simply print out something like this. Bob and Tom are the same age. Why do I write that? Well, think about it for a second. There's only really 3 options here when we're comparing 2 integers, these numbers that we have up here. It's either true that Bob is older than Tom, or that Bob is younger than Tom. And if neither of those 2 things are true, if Bob is neither older nor younger than Tom, then there's only one other possibility left, and that is that they must be the same age, right? If we think about the logic of those numbers. And so the else statement here basically is what we like to call in programming a catch-all statement. I'll just put a comment in here, meaning that this else statement will be executed if neither of the first 2 statements are true. So remember, the way if statements work, that is, if this condition is not true, then this code here will be skipped. And if this conditional statement is not true, then this will be skipped. And so if both of these are untrue, or in other words, if neither of these two clauses are true, then all that code will be skipped. None of these things will be printed out. And then we must assume that these ages are, Bob is neither older nor younger than Tom, and so therefore the last option must be true, and so we'll print this out no matter what. Bob and Tom are the same age. Okay, so we're going to go down another line. We're done with our if statement. We'll go ahead and just do a system pause. Oops, if I could only spell that correctly there. And go ahead and end our program just like that. Okay, let's go ahead and run this and see what happens. I'm going to save it. I'm going to hit F5. Yes, I want to build it. It'll think for a moment. All right, here we have the output of our program. It says simply, Bob is older than Tom. Press any key to continue. What we want to note here is that even though I had two other cout statements, they were both ignored, because sure enough, Bob's age, 32, is greater than 16. And so this one here this condition was true, and this was printed out, and therefore, since this one was true, these other two were ignored altogether and were not run. So what happens now if I change this, make Bob 2 years old, and Tom is 16. Let's run it again. I can test my logic and my programming to see if they work, and sure enough it says now Tom is older than Bob. That is correct. Okay, so this statement was ignored because this is not true, and it got down here and looked at this comparison statement and said, yep, this is true. Bob is less than Tom. So it printed out this statement and ignored this one. And if, last possible option, they were both 16, we will build and run this now, and we will see that Bob and Tom are the same age. Press any key to continue. And so our program works perfectly. You now see a program that uses all three types of statements or clauses within an if statement: the if, the else if, and the else. One thing to note is that you always start with an if statement. You cannot start with an else if. You have to start with an if. If you want to have multiple conditions after the first if, you use else if. You can use many else ifs. For example, I could have an if followed by 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 else ifs. Okay. But the else statement can only come at the end. It can only be used once, and it can only come at the very end. Just like the if statement can only be used once, and it has to come at the beginning. Okay? So one if followed by as many else if statements or clauses as you want, and then followed by a closing else statement. You don't have to have else or else ifs. You could just simply have just if statements without these other clauses. Okay? Alrighty, so I want you to go ahead and run this, build it, and make sure it's working properly on your computer as well.